The emergency room was crowded and noisy. Nurses moved quickly, patients cried in pain, and machines kept beeping. I had been working for hours without rest, but I pushed myself to stay strong. Saving lives was my duty. Just as I finished checking one patient, the doors opened again. A little girl was carried inside. She looked pale, weak, and frightened. My heart softened immediately. Children always broke my heart when they suffered. I hurried forward and asked, "What happened to her?" "She has trouble breathing," the man holding her said, his voice urgent. I reached out to take the child and guide them to a bed. But when my eyes lifted to the man's face, my entire body froze. The world seemed to stop. It was him, my husband. For a moment, I could not breathe either. My hand shook as I tried to steady the girl on the bed. My heart raced, not only because of the emergency, but because of the storm inside me. He looked at me with shock, guilt, and something I could not name. He did not expect to see me here. I could tell from his eyes. The little girl clung to him and whispered, "Daddy." The word cut through me like a knife. Daddy, my husband, with another child, another family. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm. I was a doctor and I had a duty, but inside I was breaking apart. I met Daniel 8 years ago, on a rainy evening. I was a young doctor, just starting my career. He came to the hospital with a sprained ankle after slipping on the wet pavement. He smiled at me even while in pain, and I remember thinking his smile was the warmest thing I had ever seen. After that day, he began visiting me often. Sometimes it was for small checkups, but most times it was just an excuse to see me. He brought flowers, sometimes coffee, and always sweet words. Slowly, I fell in love with him. 2 years later, we were married. I thought my life was perfect. He was kind, supportive, and made me laugh even after long, tiring shifts. We dreamed of building a future together, maybe buying a house, and one day raising children of our own. But dreams do not always stay the same. Over the past year, things had started to change. Daniel often came home late, saying he was busy with work. He spent more time on his phone, hiding messages when I walked into the room. I noticed the distance grow between us, but every time I asked, he would kiss my forehead and say, "Don't worry, everything is fine." I wanted to believe him. I told myself he was just stressed. I blamed his job, the economy, even myself. I never wanted to think the worst. After all, wasn't trust the foundation of marriage? But sometimes, small cracks tell the truth before the walls collapse. I remembered one evening when he returned home smelling of perfume. It was not mine. I laughed it off nervously, telling myself he must have been standing close to someone at work. Another time, he canceled our dinner plans at the last minute. When I called him, I could hear a child's laughter in the background. He explained quickly that he was at a friend's house. I believed him, or rather, I forced myself to believe him. Looking back now, standing in the emergency room, everything made sense. All the excuses, the late nights, the strange behavior. It was not just work. It was her. It was them. The little girl on the bed, clinging to him, was the answer to every doubt I had pushed away. And the worst part? A small piece of me had known all along. I just didn't want to see it. The little girl's breathing was shallow and fast. Her small chest rose and fell with difficulty, and her lips had turned pale. I quickly put on my gloves and leaned closer, forcing myself to focus on her instead of the man standing beside her. "What's her name?" I asked, my voice steady even though my heart was shaking. "Lily," Daniel answered softly, his eyes avoiding mine. "Lily." I repeated the name silently as I placed a stethoscope on her chest. The wheezing sound was clear. She was struggling to get air into her lungs. "She has asthma, but her inhaler didn't work this time," Daniel explained quickly. His voice carried panic, fear, and care. The way he held the girl's hand tightly made it clear he loved her deeply. I swallowed the bitterness rising inside me. My personal pain had to wait. Right now, the child needed me. "Give me oxygen and a nebulizer." I ordered a nurse. We worked quickly. I attached a mask to Lily's face, speaking gently to calm her. "Breathe slowly, sweetheart." You're safe here. Her big eyes looked at me with fear, then shifted to Daniel. Daddy, don't leave me, she whispered. I'm right here, baby, he replied, squeezing her hand. His voice was tender, filled with the kind of warmth I once thought was only mine. I focused on the monitor, watching her oxygen level rise little by little. Relief washed through me as her breathing began to improve. After several long minutes, the tightness in her chest eased, and the color started returning to her cheeks. She's stable now, I said quietly. Daniel finally lifted his eyes to mine. For a moment, we just stared at each other. His face carried guilt and fear, not just for Lily, but also because of the secret that had finally been exposed. I turned away, writing notes on the chart with hands that trembled slightly. My duty was done for now, but the storm inside me was only beginning. As Lily rested, I stood near her bed, pretending to check the monitor again. In truth, I was stealing small glances at Daniel. He sat beside her, brushing her hair gently, whispering words of comfort. His eyes softened every time she looked at him. It wasn't just kindness. It wasn't just concern. It was love, the love of a father for his child. The truth pressed harder against me. My husband was not only her guardian, he was her father. I noticed details I had ignored at first. The curve of her nose, the shape of her chin, tiny features that mirrored Daniel's. The way she clung to him as if he was her whole world. And then the final confirmation, the hospital form. When the nurse handed it to me, the last name written in neat letters was the same as mine. Father's name, Daniel Carter. I froze. My fingers gripped the paper tightly as my chest burned. There was no mistake. No excuse. No more lies. He had another family. My mind replayed every late night, every excuse, every phone call he quickly ended when I walked into the room. I had wanted so badly to trust him that I blinded myself to the truth. And now, standing in this hospital, the truth stared me in the face. Daniel must have felt my eyes on him, because he finally looked up. For a brief second, our eyes met. His expression said everything: guilt, fear, and silent pleading. I wanted to scream, to ask him how long, to demand why. But Lily stirred on the bed, her small hand reaching for him again. Daddy, stay with me, she whispered. And so I stayed silent. My world had just shattered, but I could not let the child see the storm inside me. After Lily was settled and resting, I stepped outside the room. My hands were shaking, my chest felt heavy, and my thoughts were racing. I needed answers. I needed the truth. Daniel, I said firmly, standing by the hallway door. He hesitated, glanced at Lily, then slowly followed me into a quiet corner of the hospital. For a moment, we just stood there, the air thick with silence. Finally, I spoke, my voice trembling but sharp. How long? He lowered his eyes. It's not what you think. Not what I think. I almost laughed, but the sound was bitter. That child just called you Daddy. The forms have your name. Tell me, how long have you been living this lie? Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older, tired, and trapped. I never meant for you to find out like this. I stared at him, my heart breaking with every word. So it's true. You have another family. A daughter. All those late nights. All the excuses. You were with them, weren't you? He didn't answer, and his silence screamed louder than words. Anger boiled inside me. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? To us? I gave you my trust, my love, my whole life. And you, my voice cracked, tears filling my eyes. You betrayed everything. Daniel reached out as if to touch my arm, but I stepped back quickly. I couldn't bear his touch. I made mistakes, he whispered. I didn't plan for this to happen. I love you, but I couldn't walk away from her either. Lily is my child. She needed me. His words cut deeper than any knife. He admitted it without shame. He had built another life, another world, and kept me in the dark. I shook my head, fighting back sobs. You should have told me. I deserved the truth. Instead, you let me live a lie. He looked broken, but I couldn't tell if it was because of guilt or fear of losing everything. I'm sorry, he whispered. I never wanted to hurt you. But it was too late. The damage was already done. After the confrontation, I walked away from Daniel. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself down the empty corridor until I found a quiet bench. I sat there, burying my face in my hands. The hospital around me kept moving, nurses rushing, machines beeping, doors opening and closing. But to me, the world felt still and heavy. My chest ached as if someone had tied a stone to my heart. I thought about the years I had spent with him. Every smile, every promise, every dream we built together. Were they all lies? Or was he living two truths at once? One with me, one with her? I replayed the signs in my head. The perfume that wasn't mine. The sudden phone calls he stepped outside to answer. The unexplained late nights. I had chosen not to see them, telling myself love meant trust. But now I realize love without truth was only an illusion. Tears blurred my vision. Part of me wanted to scream, to storm back into that room and demand answers until my throat burned. Another part of me wanted to run far away, to erase his face from my memory. But then I thought of Lily, her fragile body lying on the hospital bed, her little voice whispering, "Daddy, stay with me." None of this was her fault. She was innocent, a child who only wanted her father's love. That thought broke me even more. Could I hate her? No, I couldn't. But I couldn't forgive him either. Not now, not so easily. I felt torn between two selves. The doctor who had stayed calm and professional, and the wife whose world had just collapsed. Both selves were inside me, pulling me in different directions. For the first time in my life, I didn't know who I was anymore. A healer? A wife? A fool? Or a woman standing at the edge of a broken life? I sat on that bench for what felt like hours, though it was only minutes. My mind kept circling the same painful truth. I could not undo what I had seen, and I could not unhear what Daniel had admitted. The man I thought I knew was no longer the same. But then a nurse hurried past me, reminding me where I was. This was not just my story. This was a hospital, a place where lives depended on me. And in one of those rooms lay Lily, a little girl who had nearly stopped breathing. She needed care, not my anger. I wiped my tears and stood. My heart was broken, but my duty as a doctor was stronger in that moment. I walked back into her room. Daniel looked up immediately, guilt still heavy in his eyes, but I didn't meet his gaze. Instead, I went to Lily and checked her breathing. She smiled faintly when she saw me. "You're feeling better, aren't you?" I asked gently. She nodded, clutching the small stuffed toy the nurse had given her. "Thank you, doctor." Those two simple words reminded me of something important. My life might be falling apart, but I still had a purpose beyond my pain. I was here to heal, to help, to protect. Daniel started to speak, but I held up a hand. "Not now. This isn't about you or me. Right now, she's the only one who matters." He lowered his head, saying nothing more. Inside, though, I made my decision. I could not stay with a man who lied so deeply, who built a secret family behind my back. Love could not survive in shadows. Trust, once broken, could never be whole again. I would finish my shift, care for Lily, and then walk away from Daniel, not with screaming or chaos, but with dignity. He had taken enough from me. I would not let him take my strength too. For the first time that night, I felt a strange calm. The pain was still there, but beneath it grew something stronger, resolve. Hours later, the emergency room grew quieter. Most patients had been treated, and the rush had slowed. I stood by Lily's bed one last time. Her breathing was steady now, her small chest rising and falling with ease. She slept peacefully, holding her father's hand. I looked at her face and felt a soft ache in my heart. None of this was her fault. She was innocent, caught in a world she did not choose. I bent down and gently adjusted her blanket. "Sleep well, little one," I whispered. Daniel raised his eyes to me, searching for words. But I had none left to give him. My silence was my answer. I stepped back, taking one final look at the two of them together, a picture of the secret life he had hidden from me. Then I turned and walked out of the room. The hallway lights glowed softly, and the steady hum of the hospital surrounded me. I took a deep breath. My heart still hurt, but My steps felt lighter with each move forward. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring. Pain, yes. Anger, yes. But also freedom. The freedom to rebuild my life without lies. Behind me, the man I once loved sat with a family he had chosen in secret. Ahead of me lay a new beginning, painful but necessary. And so, in that cold hospital hallway, I walked away, not just from the emergency room, but from the life I thought I had.